As the 2026 Kentucky Derby approaches, there is one horse whose name continues to rise above all the others, capturing attention not just from racing insiders, but from fans across the world. That horse is Renegade. Coming into Churchill Downs as the morning line favorite, Renegade has done everything you would expect from a top Derby contender. He has built his reputation steadily, race by race, showing the kind of progression that trainers hope for but rarely achieve so perfectly. He has demonstrated speed when needed, patience when it mattered, and perhaps most importantly, the ability to finish strongly, something that is absolutely essential in a race as demanding as the Kentucky Derby. But as impressive as his performances have been, the story surrounding Renegade has recently taken an unexpected turn. In the days leading up to the race, reports have confirmed that he will be running in modified horseshoes. And that detail, while easy to overlook at first, has quickly become one of the most talked about aspects of this year's Derby. To understand why this matters, you first need to understand the path that brought Renegade to this moment. Like many great thoroughbreds, Renegade did not begin his career as an instant superstar. Early on, he showed promise, but he was still developing physically and mentally. His connections made the decision to give him time rather than pushing him into high-pressure situations too early. And that patience proved to be one of the defining factors in his rise. As he transitioned into his 3-year-old season, something began to change. With each race, he became more composed, more efficient, and more confident. He began to settle better during the early stages of races, conserving energy instead of fighting his rider. And when the time came to make his move, he did so with increasing authority. That progression culminated in his performance in the Arkansas Derby, which effectively secured his status as one of the top contenders for the Kentucky Derby. In that race, Renegade executed a strategy that is often associated with successful Derby winners. He stayed off the early pace, allowed the race to develop in front of him, and then, as the field turned for home, he unleashed a powerful and sustained closing run that carried him past his rivals. It was not just the fact that he won the race, but how he won it that stood out. He did not appear rushed or strained. Instead, he looked controlled, balanced, and capable of going even further if asked. That performance gave his connections confidence, and it gave the racing world a new favorite. However, as any experienced horseman will tell you, what happens between races is often just as important as what happens on race day. Behind every top-level performance is a complex process of training, recovery, and management. And it is within that process that the decision to use modified shoes becomes significant. When it was reported that Renegade would be running in modified horseshoes, many people immediately began asking the same question. What exactly does that mean, and why would a Derby favorite need it? To answer that, we need to focus on one specific type of shoe that is commonly used in situations like this, known as a 3/4 horseshoe. A 3/4 horseshoe is a specialized shoe that differs in a very important way from a traditional horseshoe. In a standard shoe, the metal extends all the way around the hoof, supporting both heels and allowing the horse's weight to be distributed evenly across the entire foot. This design provides stability and protection, which is essential for a horse running at high speed. A 3/4 shoe, however, intentionally changes that balance. Instead of extending fully around the hoof, the shoe stops short on one side, typically leaving one heel unsupported. This means that one portion of the hoof is not bearing weight in the same way as the rest of the foot. Farriers often describe this as floating. That section of the hoof and the purpose is very specific. By removing weight from a targeted area, the farrier can relieve pressure on a part of the hoof that may be sensitive, injured, or under stress. At the same time, the rest of the hoof continues to function, allowing the horse to train and compete without placing additional strain on the affected area. This type of shoe is not used casually. and it is not something you would expect to see without a reason. It is typically applied in situations involving conditions such as heel bruising, quarter cracks, abscesses, or localized sorenesses within the hoof capsule. In each case, the goal is the same: to protect a specific part of the foot while maintaining overall function. While this approach can be highly effective, it also introduces a level of complexity that becomes especially important in a race like the Kentucky Derby. The Derby is not just any race. It is one of the most physically demanding events in the sport, featuring a full field of 20 horses competing over a distance that pushes even the best thoroughbreds to their limits. From the moment the gates open, the race is fast, crowded, and unpredictable. Horses must navigate traffic, respond to changing pace scenarios, and maintain balance and coordination under intense pressure. In that environment, the way a horse's hoof interacts with the ground becomes critically important. On a firm, consistent surface, a 3/4 shoe can function exactly as intended. The unsupported portion of the hoof remains off the ground, and the horse is able to avoid placing weight on the sensitive area. However, the surface at Churchill Downs is not always perfectly firm. It is a dirt track, and depending on weather and track conditions, it can vary from hard and fast to soft and deep. When the surface is softer, the hoof can sink slightly with each stride. When that happens, the portion of the hoof that was meant to be protected may still come into contact with the ground, reducing the effectiveness of the shoe's design. This does not necessarily mean the horse will struggle, but it does introduce an additional variable that must be considered. So when we look at Renegade, we are no longer looking at just a talented horse with a strong record. We are looking at a horse whose team is making a calculated decision to balance performance and protection. They are choosing to manage a specific aspect of his physical condition while still allowing him to compete at the highest level. This decision does not automatically indicate a serious problem, but it does suggest that careful attention is being paid to the details of his soundness. And in a race where so many factors can influence the outcome, those details matter. As the Derby approaches, the conversation around Renegade continues to evolve. On one hand, he remains a deserving favorite with the pedigree, the performances, and the running styles that align with past winners. On the other hand, the use of a 3/4 shoe introduces an element of uncertainty that cannot be ignored. Ultimately, the Kentucky Derby has always been a race that tests more than just speed. It tests resilience, adaptability, and the ability to perform under conditions that are often less than perfect. Horses that succeed in this race are not just talented, they are durable, composed, and capable of handling whatever challenges arise. Renegade has already shown many of those qualities. He has proven that he can finish strongly, that he can handle pressure, and that he can compete at a high level. Now the question is whether he can bring all of that together on the biggest stage, with every variable in play. As the field prepares to enter the starting gate and the tension begins to build, there will be countless factors to watch. The break, the pace, the positioning, and the timing of each move will all play a role in determining the outcome. But there will also be something less obvious, something that most viewers will never notice, yet could still influence the race in a meaningful way. It will be there in every stride, in every moment of contact between hoof and ground, quietly shaping the performance of the horse that carries so many expectations. Because in the Kentucky Derby, the smallest details can make the biggest difference. And sometimes the story of the race is not just about the horse, but about the decisions made to get him there. And remember, I am not AI. If you listen carefully, you can hear me breathing.